My American Express Platinum card sits on the oak bar table at the airport lounge next to a glass of dark red wine while my phone vibrates maniacally. 2,000 miles away at a luxury Aspen ski resort, my parents and sister just realized the invisible daughter they abandoned in a cheap motel is actually the sole owner of this $16,800 holiday. They forgot that whoever holds the wallet holds the power. My name is Harper. At 34 years old, as the creative director for a massive advertising firm called Apex Horizon, I spend my days selling fantasies to people who are desperate to believe in them. But standing here in the polished quiet of the airport lounge in Denver, watching the gray snow swirl against the floor-to-ceiling glass, I realize I have been the biggest sucker of them all. I am not waiting for the shuttle to the luxury ski resort in Aspen. I am waiting for a solitary flight to a tropical beach where the only ice I will see is in my drink. It makes my chest ache to think about 48 hours ago. That was when I still believed the lie. I had spent 6 months meticulously planning what I called the dream Christmas. I wanted everything to be flawless. I wanted to curate a memory so expensive and so beautiful that my family would have no choice but to love me for it. I can still see the spreadsheet in my mind, the numbers black and sharp against the white screen. The penthouse at the lodge, a 3-bedroom sanctuary with a view of the slopes, cost $8,000 for the week. The 4 round-trip first-class tickets set me back $3,500. I had prepaid $2,000 for prix-fixe dinners at restaurants where you have to know someone just to get a reservation. Then there was the $3,300 for the lift tickets, the equipment rentals, and the full-day spa packages my mother hinted she wanted. The grand total was $16,800. I paid every cent. I did not ask for contributions. I did not ask for gas money. I told myself this was a gift, a dutiful daughter's offering. But if I am being honest with myself, it was a bribe. I was trying to buy a seat at their emotional table. Then Bella arrived. My 26-year-old sister swept into our parents' house like a hurricane of perfume and entitlement. She is an influencer, or at least she tries to be, though her engagement rates are as low as her bank balance. She dropped her designer luggage, which I know for a fact our parents paid for, in the middle of the hallway, and immediately pulled out her phone to record a video. "Guys, oh my God, we are going to Aspen!" she squealed at her screen, posing with a duck face. Follow along for the Lux Life vibes? She did not look at me. She did not say thank you. She did not acknowledge that the Lux life she was broadcasting was entirely funded by the sister she barely spoke to. To Bella, my sacrifice was just the background scenery for her main character energy. My father was no better. I walked past the front porch and heard him boasting to our neighbor, Mr. Henderson. Yes, Bob. We decided to treat the girls to a real white Christmas this year. Nothing but the best. You know how it is. He said He claimed the generosity as his own, wearing the credit for my hard work like a stolen coat. I bit my tongue. I swallowed the correction that threatened to burst out of my mouth. I told myself it did not matter who got the credit, as long as we were together. But the unease started to creep in later that afternoon. I walked into the kitchen and found my mother and father huddled in the corner with Bella. They were whispering, their heads close together in a tight conspiracy. When they heard my footsteps, they sprang apart, just talking about the packing list. "Harper," my mother said, her voice too high, her smile too wide. "You know how your sister is with her outfits." I nodded, forcing a smile back. But my stomach turned. I felt like an intruder in my own family. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that Christmas was about forgiveness and unity. I was wrong. The reality hit me the moment we arrived at the airport check-in counter this morning. I handed over my passport and the itinerary. I have 4 seats in first class under my name. I told the agent. Before the agent could respond, my father stepped in front of me, using his shoulder to physically block me from the counter. "Actually," he said, his voice booming with a false authority that made me flinch, We need to adjust the seating arrangements. There has been a slight change in plans. It has always been this way, a script written before I was even old enough to read it. I was the rock, the boring foundation that held the house up, while Bella was the decoration on the mantelpiece that everyone admired. I close my eyes and let the memories wash over me, tasting the bitterness that has been fermenting for years. I have spent my adult life buying my way into my parents' hearts, transaction by transaction. I remember the day I paid off my mother's credit card debt. It was $11,000 of QVC jewelry and lunches with her friends. She had handed me the bill with a trembling hand and a pitiful look. "Harper, honey, please," she had whispered, eyes wide with performative fear. "If your father sees this, he will kill me. Just handle it. For me, I handled it. I always handled it. 2 years later, when my father's old sedan finally died, I bought him a brand new truck, $30,000 signed away in a single afternoon. He drove it home to show his poker buddies, beaming with pride. But he never told them I bought it. He let them believe he was the successful patriarch providing for himself. He never looked me in the eye and said thank you. I was not a daughter to them. I was an ATM with a pulse. The contrast between my sister and me could not be sharper. To afford their lifestyle and my own survival, I have worked 14 hours a day for a decade. I clawed my way up the corporate ladder at Apex Horizon, sacrificing sleep, relationships, and my own mental health to become a director. Meanwhile, Bella treated careers like disposable fashion trends. She was a stylist, then a DJ, then a lifestyle consultant. She quit every job the moment it required actual effort, yet she never starved. My parents funneled money to her, constantly money that I had given them to pay their bills. They were effectively laundering my hard-earned salary into Bella's allowance. The reason for this trip was rooted in that same toxic soil. For the entire year, my parents had complained. They would sigh loudly while scrolling through Facebook on their iPads. "Look at the Johnsons," my mother would say, thrusting the screen at me. "Skiing in Aspen, staying at the lodge. Must be nice to have children who actually want to spoil their parents. We have never had a luxury Christmas." The guilt trip was subtle but effective. So, I did the unthinkable. I took my entire year-end performance bonus and drained the savings account I had been building for a down payment on a house. I poured it all into this trip as a desperate, final attempt to bond with them. I wanted to prove I was worth more than just a check. I did not just book a room, I booked the Winter Palace penthouse. It was a 3-bedroom fortress of luxury with a floor-to-ceiling stone fireplace and a private balcony overlooking the snowy peaks. It was magnificent. It was perfect. But perfection was not enough for Bella. A week before the trip, she called me, her voice dripping with that manipulative sweetness I loathed. "Harper, I was thinking," she said, "if we are going to Aspen, I need content, high-quality stuff. You need to hire a professional photographer to follow us for a day. You can just write it off as a business expense." Right? I could not write it off. But I agreed to the extra $500 anyway. I just wanted her to be happy. I wanted everyone to be happy. My delusion shattered 2 days ago. I was walking past the kitchen, carrying a stack of wrapped gifts, when I heard my mother on the phone with Aunt Carol. Her voice was loud and brimming with pride. "Oh, yes, Carol, we are so excited," my mother said. "Bella really outdid herself this time. She organized the whole thing, a penthouse in Aspen. I know. She is such a good girl. So filial." I froze in the hallway. Bella, who could not even remember to pay her own phone bill. What about Harper? Aunt Carol must have asked, because my mother's tone shifted to a dismissive breeze. "Oh, you know Harper." My mother laughed. "She is just tagging along. She is lucky Bella included her. You know how she gets. Always so serious." I stood there, gripping the boxes until the cardboard buckled under my fingers. I wanted to kick the door open and scream the truth. I wanted to show them the receipts. But I did what I have always done. I swallowed the scream. I let the acid burn my throat and walked away in silence. I told myself it did not matter who got the credit, as long as we were a family. I was so incredibly stupid. The lodge was even more breathtaking in person than it had been in the brochure. Huge timber beams stretched across the ceiling. A chandelier made of antlers that probably cost more than my car hung above us, and a fire roared in the lobby, smelling of expensive pine and money. I walked to the reception desk, my Black American Express card ready in my hand, while my parents and Bella trailed behind, already taking selfies against the stone walls, checking in for the Winter Palace penthouse. I told the receptionist, my voice tight, "Reservation under Harper." Tyler. "Oh my God, you actually made it!" Bella's shriek cut through the sophisticated quiet of the lobby like shattered glass. I turned around slowly. Standing near the entrance was a man I recognized only from Bella's curated Instagram stories. Tyler. He was wearing a neon ski jacket that looked ridiculous and sunglasses indoors. He had that loud, unearned confidence of a man who has never been told no in his life. Babe Tyler shouted, ignoring the disapproving looks from the other guests. He dropped a duffel bag on the floor with a thud. Traffic was a nightmare, but I am here to party. My parents immediately swarmed him. My father shook his hand with a vigor he never showed me. Tyler, son. "Good to see you. Glad you could join us. Mrs. Mom, looking young as ever," Tyler said, winking at my mother. She actually giggled. "Oh, stop it, you charmer." I stood alone at the counter. The receptionist looked at me with pity. "Ma'am, I just need a signature for the incidentals." I signed the paper, the pen digging into the page. I walked over to the group, 4 key cards in my hand. "We are all checked in," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Bella grabbed Tyler's arm and squeezed it. "So, funny story," she said, looking at our parents but avoiding my eyes completely. "Tyler totally forgot to book his room. The hotel is fully booked, but I told him it is fine because we have the penthouse. Right. It is huge." My stomach dropped. "Bella," I said, "the penthouse has 3 bedrooms. Mom and Dad in the master, you in the second, and me in the third. There is no room." "Well," Bella dragged the word out, biting her lip. "That is what we need to talk about." My mother stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm. Her grip was tight, controlling. "Harper, sweetie, listen. Tyler is our guest. We cannot just leave him out in the cold. It is Christmas. He can sleep on the sofa," I said flatly. "It is a pull-out." Tyler laughed, a sharp barking sound. "Yeah, no. I have a bad back. Babe, I need a real mattress. Plus, I didn't drive 4 hours to sleep in a living room. Harper," my mother said, her voice dropping to that serious, disappointed tone she used when I was a child. "Tyler and Bella are a new couple. They need their privacy, and honestly, having you in the room next door might be a little awkward for them." I stared at her. The lobby seemed to tilt sideways. "So you want me to sleep on the sofa?" "No," my father interrupted. He was looking at his phone, not even pretending to care about my reaction. "The sofa is in the living room. We will be up late drinking wine and talking. You need your rest. You work so hard, after all." "So where exactly am I supposed to sleep?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow and distant. "I found a solution," my father said calmly. He turned his phone screen toward me. It was a listing for a roadside motel called the Pine Cone Inn. It is just 30 minutes down the mountain. Very affordable. We will pay for it, of course. It is better this way. Harper, you will have your own space, and Bella and Tyler can have the romantic Christmas they deserve. I looked at the picture on his phone. It looked like a place where people went to hide from the law. not celebrate a holiday. A motel, I repeated. You want me to stay in a motel 30 minutes away while you stay in the penthouse I paid $8,000 for. Don't be dramatic, Bella snapped, rolling her eyes. You always make everything about money. God, why do you have to be so selfish? Tyler is here. Can't you just be happy for me? We are doing what is best for the family, my mother added, patting my shoulder again. Just be a big sister for once. Okay, be the bigger person. I felt the air in the lobby grow thin, sucking the oxygen right out of my lungs. My grip on the reception counter was the only thing keeping me upright. I paid $8,000 for this suite, I said, my voice trembling, not with sadness, but with a rage so hot it felt cold. My name is on the reservation. My credit card was charged. You cannot kick me out of a room I paid for. Bella let out a strangled sob, the kind that was loud enough to turn heads but dry enough to save her mascara. She buried her face in Tyler's neon nylon chest. See? She wailed, her voice muffled but distinct. She always does this. She thinks because she has a boring corporate job and money she can control my life. You just want to ruin this for me because you are jealous. You are so selfish, Harper. You want me to be miserable? My father stepped between us, puffing out his chest to shield his fragile younger daughter from the monster who paid her bills. Harper, enough, he snapped. You are 34 years old. Stop counting pennies like a miser. Family is not a transaction. You are the oldest. You are supposed to be the responsible one, the one who makes sacrifices. But I don't ruin the mood, honey, my mother interrupted, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. We have been looking forward to this all year. Do not make a scene in a nice place like this. It is Christmas. Can't you just put your ego aside for 1 week? I looked at Tyler. He was leaning against the brass luggage cart, scrolling through his phone with a smirk playing on his lips. He did not offer to pay for his own room. He did not offer to sleep on the floor. He did not offer to leave. He stood there with the arrogance of a man who knew he had already won because he had the only currency that mattered to my parents. He was new, and he was not me. It is settled then, my father said, clapping his hands together with finality. We will take the bags up. You head down the mountain. My mother reached into her designer purse, a purse I had bought her for her birthday 3 years ago, and pulled out a crisp bill. She grabbed my hand and shoved the money into my palm, curling my fingers over it. Here, she said. Here is $100. Take a taxi to the motel, go get settled, take a nap, and come back here for dinner around 7. But please, change that expression before you come back. Nobody wants to look at a sour face while they are eating pot roast. I looked down at my hand. $100. I looked up at the vaulted ceiling of the lodge, the roaring fireplace, the guests sipping hot cocoa. I thought about the $16,800 I had spent. Then I looked at my family. My father was already signaling a bellhop. Bella was wiping away her fake tears and smiling up at Tyler. My mother was fixing her hair in the reflection of a glass cabinet. They looked so happy. They looked relieved to be rid of me. In any other year, I would have cried. I would have begged them to let me stay on the floor. I would have apologized for being difficult. But as I stared at that $100 bill, something inside me simply stopped. The noise in my head went quiet. The desperate need for their approval that had driven me for 34 years evaporated, leaving behind a terrifying, crystalline silence. I did not scream. I did not throw the money back in her face. Okay, I said. The word was soft, barely a whisper. My mother let out a long breath, her shoulders relaxing. Good. I knew you would understand. We will see you at 7, sweetie. She turned her back on me. They all did. They walked toward the elevators, laughing as the bellhop loaded my luggage, their luggage, all of it onto the cart. I stood there for 10 seconds, watching the elevator doors close on the people who had given birth to me. Then, I turned around. I gripped the handle of my small carry-on bag, the only thing I had left, and walked out of the automatic doors into the biting cold of the Aspen afternoon. I did not look back. They thought they had solved the problem. They had no idea they had just started a war. "Where to?" Miss the taxi driver asked, eyeing my expensive luggage in the rearview mirror as we idled outside the lodge. "The Pinecone Inn." "Right. That is about 30 minutes down the pass." I looked at the $100 bill my mother had crumpled into my hand. It felt dirty against my skin. "No," I said, my voice surprising me with its steadiness. "Take me to the Midnight Grind." "It is a coffee shop on the edge of town. I need good Wi-Fi and strong coffee." 10 minutes later, I was seated at a secluded table in the back of the cafe. It was quiet here, the air smelling of roasted beans rather than expensive perfume and deception. I opened my laptop and laid my phone next to it. I pulled up my email inbox. There they were, a long list of confirmation emails, glowing blue on the white screen. Every single one of them started with the same words, "Dear Harper." Not "Dear Family," not "Dear Bella," just me. My name, my credit card number ending in 4058. My phone buzzed against the wooden table. It was a notification from the Griswolds, our family group chat. They had forgotten to remove me, or perhaps they just assumed I was too pathetic to do anything about what I was about to see. I tapped the screen. Bella had sent a photo. It was a selfie taken in the master bedroom of the penthouse, the room with the fireplace and the panoramic view that I had specifically chosen for myself before ceding it to my parents. In the photo, Bella was sprawled across the fur throw on the king-sized bed, holding a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Finally made it to my winter palace, so proud of myself for treating me to the dream vacation I deserve. Boss babe self-made Aspen." I stared at the words self-made. Something inside my chest, something that had been pulled tight for 34 years, finally snapped. It wasn't a loud break. It was quiet, like a thread finally giving way under too much weight. They didn't just want my money. They wanted my erasure. They wanted to consume the fruit of my labor and spit out the seeds. Pretending the tree never existed, I put the phone down and turned back to my laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard, logging into the resort's reservation management portal. I navigated to the Terms and Conditions page. My eyes scanned the fine print until I found what I was looking for. Cancellation policy. Usually, canceling a booking on the day of arrival would mean forfeiting 100% of the cost. But I was a meticulous planner. I was the responsible one. I remembered the moment I booked the trip 6 months ago. The website had offered a platinum protection plan for an additional $500. It covered cancellations for unforeseen family emergencies. I looked at the photo of my sister claiming my life as her own. If being emotionally disowned and evicted by your own parents on Christmas Eve wasn't a family emergency, nothing was. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number for the luxury travel concierge service I had used to bundle the trip. "Thank you for calling Apex Travel. This is Sarah. How can I help you today?" "Hi, Sarah," I said. I sounded calm, terrifyingly calm. "This is Harper." Verification code H772. "I am calling because there has been a significant family emergency. I need to cancel my entire itinerary immediately." "Oh, I am so sorry to hear that. Harper," Sarah said, her voice dropping to a sympathetic coo. "Since you purchased the platinum insurance, we can certainly process that for you. Are you looking to cancel just the accommodation?" "No," I said. "I want to cancel everything. The Winter Palace penthouse suite, the 3 return tickets in first class for tomorrow, the prefix dinner reservation at the Monarch tonight, the private ski instruction packages, the spa treatments, all of it." "I see," Sarah said, the typing of her keyboard audible in the background. "Just to confirm, this will cancel the access passes for all guests listed on the itinerary Bella, Tyler, and your parents." "Yes," I said. "Cancel them all." They are no longer authorized to use any services paid for by my card. Okay, I am processing that now, Sarah said. Be aware that since the guests have already checked in, the system will alert the hotel front desk immediately to lock the room. Security usually escorts guests out within 30 minutes of a payment reversal. Is that? Are you sure? I looked at the photo of Bella one last time. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. I said, do it. And please process the refund to my American Express immediately. Done, Sarah said. You should see the pending credit of $16,800 within the hour. I hung up the phone. I took a sip of my black coffee. It was bitter, but it was the best thing I had ever tasted. The demolition had begun, but I was not finished. The adrenaline was not a rush anymore. It was a steady fuel, burning clean and bright. It was a steady fuel, burning clean and bright. I scrolled to the number for the Monarch, the 5-star restaurant where I had reserved a table for tonight's Christmas Eve dinner. The deposit alone had been $500. Reservations. A haughty voice answered. Hi, this is Harper, I said. I have a table for 4 tonight at 7. I need to cancel it. Ma'am, cancellations within 24 hours forfeit the deposit. The host sniffed. That is fine. I lied effortlessly. Actually, wait. The deposit is refundable if the cancellation is due to illness. Correct. My entire party has come down with a severe viral infection. Very contagious. We wouldn't want to infect your other guests. There was a pause. Oh. Well, in that case, we certainly do not want that. I will process the cancellation and the refund of the deposit. We hope you feel better. I feel better already, I said and disconnected. Next was the airline. This was the big one. The coup de grace. I dialed the elite priority line. I need to make changes to an itinerary. I told the agent. I have 4 first-class tickets returning from Aspen to Chicago on the 26th. I need to cancel 3 of them entirely, passengers Bella, Robert, and Susan. For the 4th ticket, under the name Harper, I need to change the destination. Where would you like to go instead? Ms. Harper. I looked out the window at the gray, miserable sky. I thought about the one place that was the complete opposite of this frozen hellscape. Miami, I said. Get me on the next flight out of Denver to Miami. One way. The agent worked his magic. The keyboard clacking sounded like music. All set. The 3 tickets have been canceled and the value refunded to the original form of payment. Your new flight departs in 3 hours from gate B12. You are all set. I opened my banking app. I refreshed the page. And there it was. The numbers were beautiful. Green text indicated pending credits rolling in like a tide. $8,000 from the resort. $3,500 from the airline. $2,000 from the dining reservations. $3,300 from the concierge activities. $16,800. It was not just money. It was justice. It was the weight of my shackles being converted back into currency. I booked a suite at a beachfront resort in South Beach, paying with the very same card I had just cleared. Then, I opened my contacts. I found Tyler's number and hit block without a second thought. I did not care what he had to say. But then my finger hovered over my mother's name, and Bella's, and my father's. No, I would not block them. Not yet. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see the moment the realization hit them. I wanted to see the panic when the lights went out and the facade crumbled. I placed the phone face up on the table, took a sip of my coffee, and waited for the show to begin. While I sat in the quiet corner of the coffee shop, miles away, the chaos I had orchestrated was detonating with precise timing inside the Winter Palace penthouse. Bella and Tyler were busy celebrating their victory. I knew they had cracked open the $300 bottle of vintage champagne that was part of the welcome package I had paid for. The cork would have popped with a festive sound, echoing off the high timber ceilings. To us, Bella likely squealed, clinking her glass against Tyler's, and to not having a buzzkill in the room next door. My parents were lounging on the Italian leather sofas, warming their feet by the roaring stone fireplace. They were comfortable. They were smug. They were likely discussing me with that tone of pitying disdain they reserved for when I was not around. Harper is just difficult, my mother would have said, sipping her drink. She has always been an eccentric, so stiff. She does not know how to just enjoy life like we do. She needs to learn her place, my father would have agreed. She thinks money gives her the right to dictate terms. She will cool off in that motel and come crawling back for dinner. Then, the world ended. With a loud click, the warm ambient lighting of the penthouse died. The roaring gas fireplace cut out instantly, the flames vanishing into the stone. The room plunged into gray twilight, illuminated only by the harsh, blinking red of the emergency strobe on the smoke detector. The massive 80-inch television screen above the mantelpiece flickered from a holiday movie to a stark, blue screen with white text. Checkout complete. System lockdown initiated. Before they could even process the darkness, the room phone began to ring. It was a shrill, demanding sound in the sudden silence. My mother picked it up, annoyed. "Hello." The power just went out. "Fix it. Mrs. Harper, the receptionist's voice, would have been polite but icy, the kind of tone used for trespassers, not guests. "We have received a notification from the primary account holder. The reservation has been canceled and the payment reversed. Per hotel policy, since there is no valid payment method on file, we require all guests to vacate the premises immediately. You have 15 minutes before security arrives to escort you out." What my mother screamed, her voice cracking. That is insane. My daughter booked this room. There must be a mistake." "There is no mistake, ma'am," the voice replied. "Ms. Harper personally authorized the cancellation. Please bring your keycards to the front desk." My father snatched the phone from her hand. "Now see here," he bellowed, his face likely turning a dangerous shade of purple. "I want to speak to your manager. You cannot treat us like this." "Do you know who we are? I am sending the manager up now." "Sir," the receptionist said, and the line went dead. 3 minutes later, a sharp knock echoed on the heavy oak door. It was not a bellhop. It was the shift manager, flanked by 2 large security guards. He stood in the hallway, holding a clipboard, looking entirely unimpressed by my father's blustering. "As my colleague explained," the manager said, his voice flat, "the cardholder, Harper, has utilized the emergency cancellation clause of her platinum insurance. She has rescinded all authorization for charges. The $16,800 has been refunded to her card. This room is currently unpaid. Inside the room..." The panic set in. Bella dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the stone hearth. But I am live streaming," Bella shrieked, looking at her phone where her followers were watching the lights go out. "You cannot kick us out. I am an influencer. I will ruin you." Tyler stood up, his face twisting into a scowl. "Wait a minute," he said, looking at my parents. "You mean you guys didn't pay for this?" "Your crazy daughter did, and she took the money back." "It is a misunderstanding," my father insisted, his hands shaking as he reached for his wallet. "I will handle this. I will pay for the room right now. Here." He pulled out his credit card, a card I knew had a limit of maybe $2,000 on a good day, and thrust it at the manager. "Run it," my father commanded. "We are staying." The manager took the card and inserted it into a portable terminal. The machine beeped once. A long, low tone followed. "Declined." "I am sorry, sir," the manager said, handing the plastic back like it was a piece of trash. "This card has been declined for insufficient funds. The nightly rate for the Winter Palace is $8,000, plus tax. Unless you have another form of payment, you need to leave. Now." My mother gasped, clutching her chest. Bella began to cry, real ugly tears this time, as she realized the warm, luxurious fantasy was dissolving into the cold reality of being broke in Aspen. Tyler looked at them, his rich girlfriend's family, with dawning horror. They were being evicted, and they had nowhere to go. Back in the airport lounge, the silence of my private booth was shattered by the angry buzzing of my phone against the oak table. It moved across the polished wood like a trapped insect. I took a slow sip of my red wine, watching the screen light up with a relentless, frantic rhythm. It had been 20 minutes since the lights went out in Aspen. In that short time, I had accumulated 20 missed calls from my mother and 15 from my father. The notifications were piling up so fast that the screen could barely refresh. Voicemails, text messages, missed FaceTime requests. It was a digital avalanche. I picked up the phone, not to answer, but to witness the carnage. I opened a voicemail from my mother, recorded just 2 minutes ago. I held the phone up to my ear, savoring the sound. Harper. Pick up the phone right now. Her voice was distorted by wind and what sounded like genuine hysteria. What the hell is wrong with you? The security guards just threw our luggage onto the curb. We are standing in the snow. It is 5 degrees out here. Put the money back on the card. You are sick. Do you hear me? You are sick. I deleted the message. I opened the text thread. Bella had sent a stream of messages, mostly in capital letters. You need to fix this now. Tyler is freaking out. He says he is going to leave if we do not have a room. You are ruining my life. Harper, I hate you. Pay for the room. I looked at the glass of wine in my hand. It was a deep, rich crimson. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was not guilt. It was the feeling of a heavy coat being taken off after a long winter. I typed a single reply into the family group chat. I wanted to make sure they all saw it at the same time. You told me I should go to a motel to give you privacy. I agreed. I realized the penthouse was too crowded and expensive for just the 3 of you, so I returned it to save money. Now you have all the privacy you wanted. Merry Christmas. I hit send. Then I put the phone on Do Not Disturb. In my mind's eye, I could see the scene in Aspen perfectly. I knew exactly what was happening outside the lodge. My parents and Bella were standing on the sidewalk, surrounded by their pile of Louis Vuitton bags, shivering in the biting wind. The town was packed for the holidays. Every hotel, every lodge, every bed and breakfast within 50 miles was booked solid. And then came the moment I had predicted, the inevitable collapse of Bella's house of cards. Tyler, the man who had been so eager to crash in a free penthouse, was checking his phone. He saw the text. He looked at the shivering family, at my father's declined credit cards, at the reality of a night without luxury. This is ridiculous, Tyler likely said, buttoning his neon jacket. I am not freezing to death out here because your family is broke. Tyler, wait, Bella would have screamed, grabbing his arm, her tears freezing on her cheeks. We will figure it out. Just wait. Nah, Tyler would have replied, shaking her off. You said you guys were loaded. You said you had this handled. I don't do drama, and I definitely do not do poverty. Good luck, babe. He would have tapped his screen, summoned an Uber, and loaded his single duffel bag into the back of a warm SUV, leaving Bella screaming on the curb as he drove off to find a party that actually had an open bar. My parents were left with no options. I could imagine my father, his pride stripped away by the cold, frantically calling his poker buddies or distant cousins, begging for a loan. They would have to scrape together enough cash to rent a room at some roadside dive 2 hours away by bus, because that was the only place with vacancies this late on Christmas Eve. They were going to spend the night huddled in a cramped room with thin walls, smelling of stale cigarettes and regret, while I waited for my flight to paradise. I finished my wine and stood up. The flight attendant announced boarding for the flight to Miami. I picked up my bag. For the first time in 34 years, I was not walking behind them, carrying their baggage. I was walking away, and my load had never been lighter. I sank into the wide leather seat of the plane, the engine hum vibrating against my spine like a purring cat, as the wheels lifted off the tarmac, physically disconnecting me from the frozen ground of Denver. I felt a sharp, phantom pain in my chest. It was the ghost of the little girl who just wanted her mother to look at her with pride. The child who thought if she just got better grades or a better job, they would finally see her. But as we climbed higher, breaking through the heavy gray cloud cover into the blinding golden brilliance of the sun, that pain dissolved into an overwhelming, light-headed sense of relief. I thought about the $16,800. For years, I would have looked at that sum as a down payment on a condo or a safety net for a rainy day. But as I watched the world shrink below me, I realized its true value. It was not the price of a ski trip. It was the ransom payment for my own soul. It was the cost of buying back my dignity from people who had held it hostage for 3 decades. It was a bargain. The truth was brutal, but it was clean. My parents did not love me. They loved what I provided. They loved the safety I offered. They loved the way I fixed their mistakes and paid for their luxuries while demanding nothing in return. The moment I stopped being a utility and tried to be a person with needs, their affection evaporated when the credit card declined. So did their love. They were not family. They were parasites who had finally been detached from the host. This was not a tantrum. This was not a fight that we would smooth over with awkward hugs and passive-aggressive comments at Easter. This was an eviction. I pulled out my phone one last time before enabling flight mode. I opened my banking apps. With a few steady taps, I unlinked my parents' checking account from my overdraft protection. I canceled the joint credit card my mother carried for emergencies, which she usually defined as designer sales. Then I went smaller, pettier, but deeply satisfying. I opened Netflix. I opened Spotify. I opened Amazon Prime. I changed every single password to a random string of characters even I would not remember without writing them down. Log out of all devices, I whispered to myself as I hit the final button. Somewhere in a cheap motel room, the TV screen would go black. The music would stop. The stream of comfort they felt entitled to was cut off at the source. I looked out the porthole window. The sky was a deep, endless indigo. For the first time in my life, I saw the horizon not as a limit, but as a promise. I was no longer the backup plan. I was no longer the safety net. I was the pilot of my own life. My mind drifted briefly to Aspen. I knew exactly where they were. They would have ended up at a place like the Rusty Spur, a motel that made the Pinecone Inn look like the Ritz. The heating would be rattling and insufficient. The beds would be lumpy. My father would be shouting at my mother for packing too many bags that they now had to drag through the snow themselves. My mother would be sobbing about her reputation and how she would explain this to the neighbors. And Bella... My phone vibrated in my hand. It was Bella. I stared at the screen. I could have ignored it, but I wanted to hear it one last time. I wanted to hear the sound of the bridge burning. I answered. "You bitch!" Bella screamed, her voice shrill and breaking. "Do you have any idea where we are? There is a rat in this room, a literal rat Tyler left me. He blocked me on everything. This is all your fault. You are going to pay for this. You are going to..." I did not feel anger. I did not feel sad. I felt a bubble of laughter rise in my throat, genuine and bright. I already paid. "Bella," I said, my voice calm and smiling. "And then I got a refund." "I hate you," she shrieked. "I hate..." I tapped the red button. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I turned my phone off completely and tossed it into my bag. I closed my eyes and leaned back, ready for the sun. Miami was a technicolor dream compared to the grayscale nightmare I had left behind in the mountains. The moment I stepped out of the terminal, the humidity wrapped around me like a warm, heavy blanket. The air smelled of sea salt and sunscreen instead of pine needles and betrayal. I took a deep breath, letting the warmth seep into my bones. thawing the icy knot that had been in my chest for 34 years. My phone chimed with an email notification. I knew who it was before I even looked. It was my father. The subject line was simply, "Please read, urgent." I stood by the baggage claim carousel and opened it. It was a masterpiece of emotional manipulation. The first paragraph was full of threats, telling me I was ungrateful, cruel, and mentally unstable. But by the second paragraph, the tone shifted drastically to pathetic begging. "Harper, please." He wrote, "We checked the flight prices. One-way tickets home on Christmas Day are $2,000 each. We do not have that kind of money. Your mother is hysterical. We are your parents. We gave you life. You cannot leave us stranded here like this. It is cruel. Please, just book us the flights and we can discuss a payment plan later." A payment plan. The same way they planned to pay me back for the mortgage, the car, and the credit cards. I knew exactly what that meant. It meant I would pay, and they would forget. I typed my reply. I did not overthink it. I did not draft it. I just let the truth flow out of my fingers. You can use the money from selling Dad's truck or Bella's designer handbags to buy the tickets. I ditched the bill just like you ditched me. I hit send. Then, with a finality that felt like slamming a heavy iron door, I went into my settings and blocked his email address. I blocked my mother's email. I blocked Bella's email. I blocked every digital avenue they could possibly use to reach me. The silence that followed was absolute. I found out later, through a distant cousin who still spoke to me. What happened to them? They spent 2 more days in Aspen, not skiing, but panicking. They could not afford the flights. My mother had to go to a pawn shop in town and sell her diamond tennis bracelet and her gold watch gifts I had helped my father pick out years ago for a fraction of their value. They used that cash to buy 3 tickets on a Greyhound bus. They spent 20 hours sitting on a cramped, smelling bus, dragging their luxury luggage through grim terminals, humiliated and exhausted. But I did not know that then. And frankly, I did not care. I took a cab to the beachfront resort I had booked from the airport lounge. The lobby was white marble and open air, filled with the sound of crashing waves. I walked up to the reception desk, checking in for Harper. I said, "Welcome, Ms. Harper." The receptionist smiled. "We have your oceanfront suite ready." "And I see here everything is fully paid for." "Yes," I said, smiling back. "It is." 10 minutes later, I was on my private balcony, looking out at the endless turquoise expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. I held a sweating glass of mojito in my hand. The ice clinked softly against the glass. There would be no reconciliation. There would be no tearful reunion where they apologized and promised to do better. Real life is not a Hallmark movie. Sometimes, the bridge burns, and you just have to stand there and admire the fire. The relationship was dead, killed by 1,000 small cuts and one final fatal stab, and I was the only survivor. I raised my glass to the empty air. "To Harper," I whispered, "to being visible." I lay back on the lounge chair and closed my eyes. The sun was hot on my skin. I reached over and turned my phone completely off. For the first time in my life, I was not responsible for anyone's happiness but my own. I had $16,800 in my bank account, a drink in my hand, and a lifetime of freedom ahead of me. It was the best Christmas gift I had ever received. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today, so please drop a comment below and let's share our thoughts. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about finding strength and standing up for yourself, please subscribe to the Lily Revenge Stories channel, hit that like button, and smash the hype button to help this video reach more people who might need to hear it. Stay strong, everyone.